お帰りなさいませ。
So we have our last dun 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 dun, because this freaking show is now going to be over. Oh my gosh, what an episode with like nothing really happening, but so much happening at the same time. So the boys get their win, beheaded, obviously, but this time we see it from like Tengen's perspective for 5 seconds. Also, I paid attention to note that their heads, after being decapitated, bounced like beach balls. I don't know if your brain's supposed to do that when it hits the ground, but I think someone should check if they're spoiled. I made a joke. So Tanjiro's passing out with the poison. Same thing again. But this time, after we see the blood rage, we see Nezuko in the air using her blood art on the blood art. And so, question was, I don't think you could see that from the last episode. I think you just saw everything almost die-ish. Also, based off the last person to show up in this episode, I wonder if that's from their perspective, or at least you can almost make the case that it would be. Probably not, but that would just also make that more interesting in writing. Also, so we see that we see that Tanjiro is okay, and he's currently being protected by Nezuko as he is like passed out with his head in her lap. And I just thought that was freaking adorable. It's freaking hilarious. Especially because Nezuko is in demon mode, but she still does care about her older brother. That is very important. Also, yeah, man still has broken fingers. I specifically took note of that because I think him and Nezuko are talking, and he's all like, thanking Nezuko, obviously, but then he's also worried about everybody else. And then we hear Zenitsu yelling, so we know he's back to normal. And he's like, Tanjiro! Tanjiro! And instead, because Tanjiro cannot run, Nezuko gives him a piggyback ride, and it's one of the most hilarious things to watch out of this because she's in small form, and he is a lot taller than her. He looks like he's about a foot away from the ground. Anyways, so they find Zenitsu. Zenitsu's like, I can't walk, Tanjiro. I'm so worried. I'm so scared. Why have I woken up all beaten up? Why can't I move? Also, Inosuke is in bad shape, but why he's doing this? All his rhymes are screaming. Are rhyming. I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm pretty sure he's like, that's so cool. That's so cool. Like something dumb. Like he's rhyming while he's yelling. I love the little details with Zenitsu's freaking craziness. Oh my gosh. I'm also glad that they really just let him, like, he really just feels like he's himself now-ish. Like, earlier in this arc, we didn't see him freaking out about girls. We saw him wanting to protect people. We saw him standing up to people. We saw him very much involved in the fight. Almost a second key player in this fight. And then now towards the end, he's not like, oh my gosh, it's Nezuko. He's just like, Inosuke is hurt. Please go save him. I'm injured and I'm screaming. He feels like just Zenitsu, and that's really good. It's the same thing that happened to Inosuke. Inosuke has had himself dialed back, not like losing character, but dialed back and like being a prick and all kind of stuff like that. He cares about his boys too. It's what it is, and it's just really nice to see. Also, when Tanjiro gets to Inosuke, very interesting little detail, and like most of this episode is played for jokes, but there are moments in here that if it wasn't joking around, you could really point out Tanjiro's extreme survival guilt. Like, I couldn't put it in words last time, I forgot who said it while we were having a conversation, but he has like such severe survivor's guilt. Like, even Inosuke, he thinks is about to die at the moment. And the first thing he says out of his mouth is, why me? Why did I survive? It was me. And like, if you were to make an abridge out of Demon Slayer, you'd probably have him doing all this, then the person in the background, which is Nezuko, would just light Inosuke on fire while he's going like, I should have died. Oh, hey, Inosuke, you're alive. That would probably be the joke there. Inosuke is, or does survive thanks to Nezuko, because we said earlier, like, well, why the freak was Tanjiro alive after he was poisoned, like, directly in the face? And the reason why is because Nezuko, we just didn't see it. So Nezuko's blood art, I don't know if it's her blood art or not, allows her to heal the poison or burn the poison of the demons. So that was very interesting, and it works like a lot. So after that, Tanjiro obviously, he hugs Inosuke, and he's like, Inosuke, you're alive, you're gonna live. It's not like he still hasn't been stabbed in the chest, but it's anime, it's okay, we're right. He's like, get off of me, you're creeping me out, which is hilarious. It also makes it funnier for the ending because he's acting big and tough. Oh yeah, no. So here, one of my favorite lines in this episode is Suma saying, "If you don't save Tengen, I won't pray to you anymore," as as Suma is beseeching the gods to heal Tengen in any sort of way. And as all three wives are crying, Suma will not shut up. Tengen is like, "I'm gonna tell you my final words since it looks like I'm gonna die here." And Suma actually will not shut up enough to let Tengen be heard. And as she's doing that, Makio gets pissed about it and is about to shove rocks in her mouth. And the rocks are hitting Tengen in the head, and his tongue is getting stiff, so now he can't say anything. And he's slowly coming to realize his death is not going to allow him to have the peace of mind of finally getting out his final words. And it's freaking hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious in every fashion, especially when you hear his monologuing. And the only one who has any sense at all is always Hinatsuri, but she can't stop the two of them. Luckily enough, little Nezuko walks over to him, puts her arm on his arm, and then lights him on fire. And obviously, they react the way anybody would if you lit a loved one on fire, angrily and yelling, which I think is funny because we actually got that reaction of people who would have no idea what's going on, going, "What the freak are you doing?" Suma even grabs Nezuko and threatens to spank her like a parent, and that made me laugh so much I had to stop it and write it. But Tengen's fine. He's like, wait, hold up. I don't have the poison in me. We're good. And all the wives start crying because obviously now they're all going to move to their vacation home, where Tengen is now going to recount to his wives that story when he beat an upper demon, and I'm sure it's going to do him wonders in the future. Anyways, so Tanjiro tells Tengen to rest there, and he's going to go look for the demon's head, and Tengen shouldn't move or he'll die. And then Tengen just says back, "Hey, no, you should take a break or else you're going to die." And that was funny. Tanjiro also reminded me we're collecting blood to heal Nezuko and not make her a demon. I forgot that was a thing. He puts it in the blood, gets a little donation, the cat shows up because this is still an anime, and then he puts in the bag, and we have a higher level demon's blood now, so that's also interesting. An upper 6 level, so we're getting closer to Muzan's blood. Also, the two heads are still alive, and they are arguing. So here's where the episode takes a very strange and interesting turn that I enjoyed. I don't want to say it like that. Like, I did really enjoy it. It's just so strange, and it was kind of out of left field. Not completely, because they always do this with the demons. It's just how they go about it. So Gutaro and Daki are, like, yelling. Like, "You're ugly. I freaking hate you. You're the worst thing in the world. You're the reason why we died. You're too weak to stay alive." And they're just going back and forth and back and forth. And Tanjiro and Nezuko are just looking at it. And Daki first goes off completely and, like, insults her brother's looks, calls him ugly, and knowing his story now, that's a little bit way more personal than not. Blaming the fact that why didn't you help and blah 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 blah. But I think we mainly end on the ugly line because that would touch on him a bit more. And then he goes back and starts yelling at Daki because, like, they're both in, like, shock from what each other are yelling at each other. Like, it's crazy. He starts yelling back, and, like, I think he gets all the way to the point where he's like, it would have been better had you not been and then Tanjiro holds his mouth and is like, "You do not mean to say that. Don't curse each other out right before you're about to die." And all we get is Daki pleading for her brother to do something before she fades away and dies, as she tells Tanjiro to shut up, "You little brat, and stop being involved in all our stuff. Will you just leave us alone?" And fades, and she's dead. And we watched her brother have his mouth held as his sister died in front of him. You think about it that way, it's really dark. And she was slowly burned away. Really, also, dang, writers, I didn't even mean to come to that conclusion. Freak you. That's a whole analogy of what happens to Taki later, who we actually learned his name is Ume. Ume was named after the disease that killed their mother. Freak. And so they were obviously poor kids, and they did not like having extra mouths to feed. And as I pause to take notes, I see Gutaro's mother holding her fists over her son as she proceeds to punch him over and over again over the food. It's really kind of dark, sad. I did pause it right there, and it made me pause, like, in shock. Gutaro's walking down, like, this little sidewalk, and there are girls throwing rocks at him for being ugly and smelly and having diseases, it's really like, it's, you know what, if I said this the way I'm saying it, it sounds like I'm joking, but when you're watching it, it's just sad. He has he's seen by like a monster in the entertainment district just because he's so, the worst part is, it's not like he's like some rapscallion who's running around. He's a weak, sickly kid. So he's weak, sickly, ugly, can't do anything with his life, tired, and his mother hits him over and over again. It's like, Jesus. The only thing he has was a scythe to kill rats and snakes, and obviously here we go with Muzan twisting something that was very important to somebody. And I'm sure, again, obviously he makes his own blood art scythes, or commas. I was about to say commas. But, yeah, no, it's just sad. Like, it's just sad in every fashion. He wasn't happy into his life until his sister was born. When his sister was born, everything changed. He also had pride in his sister being so pretty, which is also a little sad, to be honest, because that's not as much. But just in general, he just liked having his sister around. Because we see later on, he just likes having his sister around. I know someone's going to misword that and then go like, oh, how dare, there's only the important part about Ducky. Well, the only important part of him is he's ugly, so I think it's fair. But no, that's not the only thing. We get a really touching moment with the both of them. But either way, he now got a job. Ducky made him realize he was really good at fighting. He is now working as a debt collector. So they finally had a job, and like things are going well, and he's buying food for himself. And then when he gets home, his sister is burned alive after stabbing some samurai in the eye. Yeah. So I think, I don't remember what the samurai was trying to do, and I'm not so sure the implications, nor do I know if I want to talk about that on my channel. Yeah, no, well, based off what he said earlier, I'm guessing not. I know he said there was some sort of wording he gave his sister that got her into more trouble than not because of his dumb philosophy, but I'm not completely sure on that one. We're not going to go completely on that, but let's just say, again, she was burned alive. Samurai's a jerk. Completely crazy. She stabbed his eye, he burned her alive. Yeah, okay. And as Gutaro is holding his sister, like, in anger and screaming at the gods that he's gonna kill each and every one of them, he's cut in the back. Yeah, no. And then we see some old lady who's like, oh, it's a shame that Ume died, but we can find someone as pretty. I'm just glad you got rid of that disgusting debt collector. He's like, yeah, don't worry, I'm about to go kill him now. And then we just see Gutaro flip out of a hole and stab the lady in the eye, which was pretty good. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, that was a pretty good scene. Also crazy. And then he goes and slashes the samurai down the face, and that dude died. And then we can see he starts his talking pattern about basically his envy, and his envy makes way more sense now. And it also makes so much sense why Daki would put so much stock in her looks. But in general, yeah, no. So all of his talk of like envious talk makes a lot more sense because he's got a lot of reasons to feel possibly envious of most people in the world. He had a very terrible upbringing, and the one thing he did care about, his sister, was burnt to a toast. Like, it's really bad. Anyways, so they're also saved by an upper demon, and it's not Muzan as he's walking through the street with nobody giving them any help. The upper demon's like, hey, I can help you guys, as he drops a leg and a head. And he's like, here's the blood. You guys can climb up the ranks. Ooh. And then we see Gutaro basically in his older demon state. It's also weird that they kind of grew up as demons. And for how long is the other question at this point? Because they seem like they were... Gutaro seemed like he lived in a different time period. Like, I'm sure there were a couple of houses that looked kind of like Tanjiro's, because Tanjiro's house looked something like that. But they look like they were in a different time period the time they were... killed. But we see him like in the void, basically by himself, like in the afterlife, and he basically gets to himself like he has no regrets in becoming this monster, because he always was a monster to society at large. He was always a demon, a monster. Basically, the demons that exist in this world are almost just demons created by man, by people, by wrongdoings, like most demons actually are, or at least how we would interpret negative actions from usually one bad day. Thank you, Joker. But the one thing he wanted was his sister to go on to have a regular life, a regular happier life. Maybe she would have married the samurai, which is why I was thinking maybe the samurai wasn't about to do something bad, but the mindset that Guturo gave his sister was bad. If not, because again, I don't know. You can just tell me in the comments and never mind. But then I was like, wait, why would you want her to marry him if that guy was awful or was going to do something? You know what I'm talking about. But let's just act like he wasn't. Move on, have a family. And also, it made me realize her hair is just normally white. Yeah, that was the thing. I was like, oh, wow. So full-powered Daki is just regular Daki. So that was the thing. And then he also, when they're both in the afterlife and she's basically apologizing for being weak, like all the words she said, she's now like, wait, brother, I didn't mean it, blah, 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 blah. You know, younger siblings, you know how they are. And if you don't know how they are, younger siblings will say a lot of things they don't mean. You get over it after you get older and you're just like, you're just 5. And then they're like, no, I'm not. And you're like, yeah, you are. And then anyways, so they're going back and forth. She's apologizing. She feels sad. He says, don't follow me. He's basically going to the negative afterlife. I don't know where we're going because this is a very strange thing. He's saying, go follow the light. And she's like, no, we're going to be reborn together. We're siblings. How could you freaking say that to me? Don't you remember what we did? I mean, not what we did. You don't remember what you said to me when we were younger? And we get this little scene and it's so adorable. It's the two of them in a little hut and you can see Guturo with a smug face because he feels so smart for getting his sister like this warmth or whatever else and making sure she was safe in the snow. And Ume is so like amazed by the little fort they made, and it's so adorable, and it's like one of the more touching moments. And I'm glad it was Ume who said it, or Daki, because we didn't really get anything in her perspective in the backstory. The only thing we got was the one moment I think she was seeing herself be burned. I think that's the only thing I could ask of this, is I would love her perspective on their childhood, because we don't really get to see the way she sees him. We only get to see the way he sees her, and obviously she values him a ton, as much as she talks mad smack when they were about to die, but they were about to die, so I wouldn't hold that against her. But she really seemed to care, to the point that she wanted to go to the terrible afterlife together. If they were going to be reborn, they'd be reborn together, and that was just really touching. It was like, what a strange and interesting death. And then we go on, and Tanjiro asks, do you think they were able to patch things up? And then we also get Orochimaru. I'm going to just keep calling him that. The other Hashira with the snake, but I'm going to call him Orochimaru. Is being rude to Tengen as he is living, and his wives, as you can see, all of them angry. He's like, oh yeah, you know, good job for you if you did beat an upper 6, you know, they really were an upper 6, not a lower 6, but yeah, great job. Anyways, what are you gonna do now? How are you gonna fight without your arm and stuff? And he's like, I'm gonna retire. He's like, you can't retire. There are people in the front line. You're not allowed to retire. And again, this is one of those things where I'm like, oh, this Hashira is annoying me. I'm sure they'll have a good backstory later, and then I'll like him more. But right now, you're a dickhead. And Tengen's like, oh no, don't worry. You know that guy you hated? He lived. I had people. Someone's gonna replace me eventually. I don't have to worry at all. And then just like Daki was getting piggybacked by her brother, I wrote, Tanjiro has a reverse. And as he's talking about Tanjiro, he's currently getting piggyback rides still from Nezuko, which is funny. Also, their master is dying from something heavy. That man is either super poisoned or something. He is coughing up blood. It turns out the lady with the white hair is his wife, I think. And then the 2 girls are his daughters, because they both go father. So I'm guessing that was their big old family. Also, he calls Muzan a blemish on my family. So is him and Muzan related? That's a whole nother thing now. Yeah, are they family? Also father, because he's the dad, and I just wasn't expecting that one. But yeah, I'm guessing, you know, Master's lived his life. Also, yeah, now the best part of this episode is we start to hear the Entertainment District op play, and we just see the boys hugging and crying. And then even Inosuke, like he was being a big old prick earlier, like, no, you're creeping me out, he's crying under his mask as they all hug each other. Nezuko just looking at them surprised. And we get the end, and all they play is the dun 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 dun. I did miss one part. Muzan summons all the upper level demons, and the question is this the first time an upper level demon's been killed? Because the master is acting like this is some crazy turn of fate, and Muzan summoned all his warriors. So let me know what you thought about this episode. I really enjoyed this season. I'm glad I went out of my way to do a recording on this. I wasn't actually sure I was going to. Not so sure what kind of anime content we're going to be doing for a while. I am mostly focused on my Genshin channel. But maybe when 86 comes back, we'll do that in March. But for right now, thank you, Baka Brigade. Any of you guys who took this ride for me. I know we're not a very popular channel, but having you guys chill out with me while doing this was a very nice experience. Just getting people to show up and talk about this anime. Thank you, Demon Slayer, for giving me a little bit of positivity during my week. Let me know what you thought about it, and I'll catch you later. Goodbye.